What was your father like?
Quiet.
Was he?
Yes, he was. One story, his law office in Northampton was not far from a small savings bank, of which he was a member of the board of that bank, and he was attorney for the bank. And he had his office in a building not far from the bank, and that office building, incidentally, was on the top floor was where my brother and I used to go to dancing school. So this particular time, I don't know what the occasion was, we happened to be on our way home from his office, and of course we passed the bank, so we were walking up the main street there in Northampton, and he had me on one side with his hand and my brother on the other. He stopped us in front of the bank and told us to listen carefully, see if we heard anything unusual. Well, of course, we listened and didn't hear anything unusual. And finally, he said, I thought if you listen hard enough, you might hear your money working for you.
Did he have a good sense of humor, in your opinion?
There was no humor in that, but it was a lesson, of course.
What was your mother like?
Oh, she was interested in so many things. Very outgoing. Loved people, and they loved her back. Never heard anybody speak ill of my mother. She tried to spoil our two daughters. Quite often when we would come up here for a weekend, we'd leave our two girls in Northampton with my mother. And we'd say, now don't you go spoiling our two girls. Of course, we'd hardly gotten around the corner when she took them down to the store in Northampton and bought them all kinds of things.
Do you have a favorite memory of your mother as First Lady?
Yes, I think on the whole she enjoyed it, perhaps more so than my father, because there were things that she was interested in, and she loved people too, and they responded to it.
Your mother particularly liked pets?
Yes, she did. Well, my father loved the dogs at the White House. He had a special one of the white collies that he named Rob Roy, and he was my father's special dog. He always said Rob was a real gentleman. That's the way he put it.
How many pets did they have at the White House?
Oh, Lord, a lot of them. Probably had half a dozen different dogs out there. I remember pet raccoon. Then sometimes they'd be sent animals that couldn't be taken care of at the White House, so they'd send those to the Washington Zoo.
What kind of pets went to the zoo?
I don't recall now, but I know the larger ones didn't stay at the White House. They didn't have any place for them, really.
Did you spend much time at the White House yourself?
No. No, you see, I was in first in preparatory school when my father and mother first entered the White House. And then I finished college before they left. So I didn't spend much time there, just usually Christmas and Easter. basically. Yes.
Did you like it?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did. It was an interesting old building, of course. And it was old. It was over 100 years old. And parts of it were pretty ancient. The plumbing, for instance, was ancient. The heating system was ancient. Every bedroom had a fireplace. The bedroom my brother and I had a grand piano in it. And in the winter, in the morning, the heating system was not very good. And then one of the colored people that worked at the White House would come into our bedroom first thing in the morning, build a fire in the fireplace. And the top floor was still showed charred timbers from the fire of 1814 when the British burned the White House in the War of 1812. Open wiring too, of course, and a great big old cast iron cistern was filled with water. I think basically that's all the water pressure they had.
You mentioned your brother, Calvin Jr. Do you have any fond memories of him that you'd like to relate?
Well, we were always together. We went together and prepared our school. We were always together. He was a fine boy, a very brilliant boy. I had trouble keeping up with him in school. He was a better scholar than I was. He was quiet. He didn't always join in some of the things that I did. For instance, he was not interested in baseball, which I was. He loved to read books.
I hear your mother loved baseball.
Yes, she was a baseball fiend from the word go. Every year, the president of the American League, every Christmas, gave her a beautiful black leather pocketbook with a pass in it, good in any American League park, for her and her party, for free. And she made use of it, too.
Did you go along?
Yes.
Your favorite team?
Boston Red Sox. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yes. So she would take friends from Northampton. I'd take off at the drop of a hat to run 100 miles over to Boston to see the Red Sox play.
Did your father speak on radio a lot?
Yes, he spoke on radio quite a little. He thought he had a very good radio voice, and he seemed to enjoy that. I don't think he really enjoyed, per se, making some of the speeches, but he spent a lot of time on them. He was very careful what he said.
There's a story about you meeting your wife.
Yes, it was on the train going to Washington for my father's inauguration. I was at Amherst at the time, and Woody, my Secret Service man, he was with me. We took the train to Washington. And the first stop we made below Springfield, Massachusetts, was in Connecticut, the capital of Connecticut. Hartford, Connecticut. The first stop the train made after leaving Springfield, Massachusetts, was Hartford, Connecticut. Word went through that another car was hit. It was hitched on behind the one we were in at in Connecticut. Word went through it was the governor of Connecticut and his party. They were going down to the inauguration. Well, I thought I knew who the governor of Connecticut was because my father, having been governor of Massachusetts, the family used to go to the New England Governors' Conventions. So I would meet all of the families of the New England governors. So when I heard that the New England governor was going down to Washington, in the car behind us, I thought I should pay my respects to him. So I proceeded to go to the car behind us. There's a man guarding the door, and he wouldn't let me in. Well, I didn't make a fuss about it. I didn't tell him who I was. So I went back and sat down, and I got to thinking about it. I told Woody, I said, you go tell him, Woody, I would like to see the governor, Connecticut governor, and pay my respects, which he did do. And then, of course, I was allowed into the car behind us. And I was led through the whole car down to the end of the car, to the drawing room. And the man that had kept me from going, was ushering me, rapped down the door was closed. He rapped on the door opened. Complete stranger. Never saw the man, didn't know his name or anything about him. It turned out that this was of course, in March in those days, and he'd only just become governor in first of the year. So I had never heard of him or didn't know him. Well, of course, he invited me to come in and meet his family, going down to Washington with him. His wife and two daughters. So that's how I met my daughter, my wife, red-haired, good-looking red-haired girl. So I guess I made a mental note of it, because the next day after the inauguration, the White House always has a luncheon for from prominent members. And so when my wife-to-be and her sister and father and mother came to the point in the lineup where they shook hands with my father and mother. Right away, my mother said to my wife-to-be, "Yes, John told me he met you on the train last night." So I was in good right then. So I wasn't allowed to stay down for the social ceremonies that evening. My father told me to get back and continue my studies, which I did, of course. So sometime later, I found out she was on hold she was at college at Mount Holyoke, which was not very far from Amherst. So sometime later, I decided I'd like to go over to Mount Holyoke and call on her. So I did. I called her on the phone, and she wouldn't believe it was me. And I finally convinced her it was. So that's how we began.
What did your parents think of your choice?
Well, my father was very fond of her, turned out, because he had red hair too, and so did I. My brother and I were both born with red hair, and he took a fancy to my wife to be. So I know he knew I made a good choice, and I did. I'm sure he could have been elected to another term. Everybody agrees that he could have been. He was a very popular president. And it was a good thing he decided not to run. Of course, he'd been terribly hurt by my brother's passing. And I guess he just, and there was a time along there after my brother went that my mother hadn't been in too good health. And so I guess he felt he didn't want to spend another 4 years in Washington. And the good thing he didn't, he wouldn't have quite finished it, because he would have died shortly before the end of it. So there wasn't any need for him to continue on. And as I say, he knew he had a good cabinet, and there were plenty of good Republicans around to take over. Mr. Hoover, for one, of course. So, all in all, I guess he figured he'd like to get back to New England and take it easy. Spend the summer here.